Welcome to Sometimes There's Side Eye, a podcast about two friends having real and unfiltered conversations about dogs and people. Listen as we talk about our lives with dogs, training, behavior, share some laughs, and a whole lot of banter. I'm Heather.
And I'm Christy. What are we talking about this week, Heather?
Ooh, this week we are going to talk about Trin and her hormones. Okay, everybody, don't stop listening. I
For
swear.
real. It's a good one.
This is like my life has been shook over the last few weeks.
Mhm.
And I think that there is even information here that people who will never have an intact animal could could be interested just to know.
Yeah,
And
and benefit from. Yeah,
yeah,
for a variety of reasons that we'll get into.
yeah. So, gosh, where do we begin? Let me explain first that Trin is 23 months old.
Mhm.
My plan was to keep her intact through her second heat cycle and then spay her. She had her first heat cycle last November, so she was like 15 months old. It was what we call a split heat. So essentially, she started spotting for like 4 days. She stopped. 7 days later, she had her full heat cycle. Her breeder had never experienced that before.
Mhm.
So, fast forward last month, I started noticing things happening with her little body on the exterior, shall we say.
Her
Ah,
hoo-ha was like a balloon.
her hoo-ha, or otherwise known as her cooter, was starting to get very, very swollen. But
Yes.
the last time she started to go through changes, that happened like months. It was like 2 months before she ever actually went into season. So, yes, it was there. Yes, I noticed it.
Mhm.
Yes, I talked about how ugly it was, but I didn't think, oh, tomorrow is the day, right?
Mhm.
So
Right.
I wasn't doing anything special, shall we say, in regards to her. Then on the 26th of June, we traveled to a friend's house and we have a trip planned to go to California. I take Trin. She sees my friend's Great Dane, whom she's been around multiple times, who is now a year old and very large.
Mhm.
And she freaks out. And when I say freak out, like I am comfortable at this point saying she had an aggressive reaction, but
Mhm.
I do not use that word lightly. It was very disconcerting.
Yes.
And it was not like I'm a little dog and I'm going to show you who I am. It was very different.
Mhm.
And I will say this, Zephyr was absolutely perfect. He was so kind to her.
Yeah. Zephyr's the great
Considering,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, we were like, okay, like this is not good. So at that point, I was kind of like, well, he's really big. We're going to come at this. We're going to do a structured play group and put her with certain dogs that love Zephyr and love her. And we had this whole plan, right? We were coming
Right.
at this
Yeah.
because we can solve this
Insight for
problem.
the other people. Yeah.
Yep,
Bounce
all the things,
ideas off. Yeah.
all the things. So we spend the trip separating them. We go, we come back, and I take her home. I came back on Saturday. I had her with my boys. Things seemed okay. I was on edge,
For sure.
but it seemed okay. As the week goes on, her behavior with my boys starts to mirror what she was doing with Zephyr.
Mhm.
And it becomes increasingly worse. Praise God, here we go. Mr. Bulldog.
Mm.
What a good little bulldog.
He just
Because
needed a Frenchie to come into your life so that you could sing his praises
I think you're
instead of being
right.
compared to the
Because I
yeah,
am telling you something. He, I, he showed some real self-restraint.
yeah.
He did. So At first, it was a little bit here, a little bit there. Then I started to see her body, like I'm watching body, right? And I'm like seeing her stiffen. I'm seeing the hackles, full hackles. And I'm like, ooh, we do not have good situations here. So then we made the decision, we're fully separating. Okay. At this point, she starts spotting. And we're like, oh, okay, this is heat
Mm-hmm.
cycle. Like, this is not great, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I did not understand at that point that the aggression could be that her heat cycle could be responsible for the aggression. Like
Right.
I had heard stories of people saying, "Oh, their females are more sensitive when they're in heat. They're this,
Of
they're
course.
that."
Yeah.
Yeah, but like full out aggression, no. I had not
Mm-hmm.
heard these stories, right? At the same time, if you all are listeners to the podcast, you know my story and how my husband and I had a dog named Lucy, very different from Christy's Lucy,
Yes.
who was our third dog and who started with aggressive behavior when she was like 16 months old. So not trends age, but similar enough.
Yeah. Close enough to raise
Close enough
an eyebrow.
to really trigger some feelings and a little
Yeah.
PTSD.
Of course.
And it was a very rough time in our lives, and we ended up living crate and rotate for 10 years. And it was something that was really hard with our marriage
Mm-hmm.
and our relationship. And we had since made a promise to each other that like we would not live that way again.
Right.
And so, if you can imagine the spectrum of feelings that I had
Sure.
going on during this
Yeah.
period, and my husband was extremely upset.
Yeah.
And I thank God I have people like Christy in my life and reaching out to other people who are like, listen, just let her go through her cycle, like let things happen, whatever. I don't think this is who she is. And I'm in my head saying behavior doesn't change for no reason. There has to be something going on.
Mhm.
So then she stops spotting. And I'm like, great. Okay, so maybe like 7 days later, she's going to go into full heat and we'll kind of get through this and then I'll spay
Mhm.
her and we'll be done.
Mhm.
2 weeks go by
Mhm.
and nothing. So I consult our vet friend and she's like, I would spay her.
Mhm.
Now,
The reason that you were not wanting to spay her, just for kind of people not in that world, the reason that you were not wanting to spay her before she finished that heat cycle
mhm.
is because it can cause complications
Well,
and
yeah.
raise additional health issues.
Yeah, like if they're in heat or they
Right.
are pregnant and you spay them, there's extra bleeding risk. It's a harder recovery. There are a
Mhm.
lot of reasons. And I wanted her to go through 2 full cycles just so that her body kind of got all the benefits of all the hormones. She's fully mature, everything's good to go.
Mhm.
But since I'm not planning to breed her, I then don't have to worry about the risk of pyometra for the rest of her life. So
Mhm.
that was kind of my thought process. So I didn't really want to spay her if we didn't know where her heat pattern was,
Mhm.
but her behavior was so extreme.
Right.
And that was very disconcerting.
Mhm.
I did make the decision last weekend to go ahead and spay her. She still was not bleeding, and her cooter had actually gotten a little smaller. So I question when would it
Right.
even have happened? I don't know.
Yeah.
And so last Monday, I took her to our friend, Dr. Suni, who is awesome at spay and neuter, does super small incisions. She's very quick about the business and is super
Mhm.
experienced. And she did her spay for her, and she made no note of her being extra risk or anything like that. And she
Mm.
didn't charge me for the in heat extra charge. So I'm thinking
She may
that
have just been done.
or that it was split and like who knows when it would have happened again.
Mhm.
But then that also makes me think this roller coaster of hormones that this poor little dog was going through.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
And I think something to address in that is one, you're came from this very traumatic experience
Uh-huh.
with your Lucy. So I mean, we work through those things as human beings, and it's been a lot of times, but I don't think those traumatic experiences ever fully go away because you're designed as a human being to learn from those experiences so that we don't keep repeating trauma to our body and to our brain. And so it makes sense that with this situation, all that trauma came back up and all those emotions came back up. But I will say, even though it was really tough for you, I think one of the important things about laying a foundation of knowledge is that you kept going back to behavior doesn't change on a dime. Behavior doesn't change without reason. There's typically health reasons, like check that first. So you came back to this foundation that you've built over the last how many years that at least you could hold on to that, even though you were
I was holding
spiraling a
on real
little.
tight, real tight.
Yeah. But I do think it speaks to the importance of building foundations on truth so that when our emotions get the better of us,
Mm.
we have that truth to go back to.
And people around you who continue to remind you of that truth.
Yes.
Yes, because there were times where I was really having trouble and really struggling to remember those things, you
Mhm.
know? I also wanted to say, so once I made the decision to spay her, and I made the appointment for Monday, once I decided on Saturday that I was spaying her, and I was talking to her breeder throughout this time, just so everybody knows, she was being supportive. She supported our decision. She's been amazing through this whole thing. But when I made the decision to do it, I then ended up actually posting on Facebook and saying everything that was going on. And I wish I would have done that when it all started. I wish I had done that when it first happened because I would have felt so much more secure in it really truly being the hormones. And I think it would have lightened the load a little bit. However, that type of thing happening brings on a lot of shameful feelings. Like,
Mhm.
so when it happened with Lucy, she was a pit bull. So, of course, I don't want to talk about it because she's a pit bull.
Mhm.
And so I really went inward and like there were all these little shame spirals, all this stuff,
Sure.
right? When this happened with Trin, I had a lot of the same feelings, but for from different roots. It took me back to the shame, but then it was like, oh, here I am, this proponent of ethical breeding and everything else. And I spent all this
Mhm.
time looking for this dog and waiting for her and doing everything
Mhm.
quote unquote right. And now I have this dog who has this problem, right? And
Mhm.
that let the other levels of shame just start to build on. And no one
Mhm.
said that to me like I'm doing this to myself, right?
Right, right.
But it's all there.
Sure.
And I there's a lesson in me not sharing and the fact that
Mhm.
had I shared and just sort of unburdened myself, I would
Mhm.
have gotten all the responses that I got weeks
Mhm.
before. And it
Mhm.
was people who have been all walks of life
Mhm.
and who shared with me, oh, my female is over social when she's in season. My female is like Trin. My female had split heats, and that was really hard on her, and that made her hormones a mess. And those seem to be harder on females than other dogs, which makes sense when you logically think about it.
Sure.
My female, I just automatically separate when she's in season because I don't want to chance anything. And all different breeds, all different people, all different walks of life,
Mhm.
all different ages. And so there's like a lesson in that too. And I just kind of wanted to air that out a little bit too when we were talking about it.
Yeah. And I would caution to because sometimes you share those things and it doesn't go that way.
I have a good community.
Yes, you have a good community. So I would say if you're not sure, maybe make a subgroup community
Yes,
and share.
yes.
Find safe places to share.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
my Facebook page is very private and very cultivated to supportive people in my life. So it is a safe space for me to share something like that, but it's a very valid point. Make sure, you're not sharing this out with like everybody that's gonna come at you.
Maybe don't share it on TikTok. Like,
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not to your like 30,000 Instagram followers, or maybe you'd
right,
want to. I don't know. But
right,
for me, I really needed that support. And had I shared earlier, I could have had more of that. And that's nothing against my small group who was supporting me, but the small group I had supporting me didn't have the experience with
right,
this situation. They just
right,
know Trin.
right. We
Yeah.
know Trin. We also know some of the same
Behavior.
foundations,
Yep.
behavior that you know,
Yep.
some of those truths and
Yep.
foundations. But you're right. I have never experienced an aggressive female in heat. I probably never will,
Yeah.
just because I don't plan to have a female intact female in my home at any point. So you're right. Like, and even our friends who do have intact females, they had very different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you were able to have a variety
Mm-hmm.
of experiences
Yeah.
through the community you've built. I also wanted to see if it would be okay if we talked about your friend who got a spayed female who had aggression after the spay.
Oh, yes. So I had a friend also who reached out, and she has a lot of experience with intact bitches and spayed bitches. She breeds and she also does rescue. And so she had shared with me, which I thought was super interesting, that she had a Rottweiler female that she adopted from the shelter who was spayed during her heat cycle so that she could come home. And she was like a completely different dog when she came home. And so she was so aggressive that there was a consideration of behavioral euthanasia because my friend was like, how can I keep this dog in my house? Like, it's not safe. It was that bad. And granted, Rottweiler aggression just based on dog size alone versus
Sure.
French Bulldog is like a
Right.
completely different animal.
Right.
But having said that, it was really, really bad. And so she went to her vet and said, hey, like this just does not match what I saw.
Mhm.
And so her vet did a bunch of research and they ended up actually putting that bitch on hormones
Mhm.
throughout her recovery to sort of like
Mhm.
wean her body off hormones. And then she was perfectly normal and dog social for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's insane. And I think one of the reasons that we want people to know about this is because that can easily happen in rescue. Uh,
Yes.
Lucy was actually spayed when she was pregnant. I didn't know she was pregnant, but when I got the paperwork, when I picked her up, I realized. So that could have easily happened to me, and I would have
Yeah.
had no clue. So I just think it's good information to have, whether you're in rescue or in the breeding world or whichever
Yeah.
world, or if you're in both, it's just good information to have to in the back of your mind to go, hey, hormones actually really matter. They matter in people and they matter in dogs.
Mm-hmm.
and and there's the body, whether it's a human body or a dog's body, is so amazing because all these things have to go right. And
Yes.
they're all need to be in balance for optimal existence.
Yeah.
And that doesn't change for dogs. And so I think addressing that dogs also have hormonal fluctuations and need hormones in the right amount is something that is not talked about,
Yeah.
one, very often, which is not surprising. We're just now starting to talk about female hormones, and it's
In
2025.
people. I know.
Yeah,
It's true.
yeah. Give it a while before we get to the dogs. But I do think it's important to realize that they're just as important in dogs as
Yeah.
people.
Well, I think it's interesting too because, as much research as we like is not there, but like look at all the anecdotal experience that all of my friends, my community were able to offer because they have lived with intact bitches for so long and in different
Mhm,
scenarios, whereas this is the first time for me. And so there's so much wealth of knowledge there. There's so much value in that. One other
mhm,
story I wanted to share because I think, like in the rescue world, I think about it as well. One of my friends shared that her bulldog, different person. She had kept her intact until she was 5 years old. And this is a dog I've met in person. She's a super accomplished sport dog. She's very, very confident and stable in temperament. And she shared with me that when she would go through and be in active heat, that she would actually become skittish and fearful.
Mm,
And that was only during her cycle. And then when she was done, she would go back to normal dog.
mhm.
And she had noticed, so she spayed her last year at 5 years old. She noticed this year that she became this like odd skittish behavior again.
Oh,
And she looked at her calendar and it would have been when she was in season. She's
oh,
spayed.
oh, that is so interesting.
So, like, her body is still going through the brain reaction and the behavior reaction, but like the hormones and the body parts are no longer there.
What?
I know.
That's insane.
So when you think about that, and this is now, I will say, I have personal experience with a friend's female who she dogs responded to her smell after she was spayed. And by dogs, I mean Tiago. So
Mm,
much so after she was spayed, and it would have been that time for her to have been in heat, that they actually took her for an ultrasound to make sure that there was no parts of her uterus left behind, because that's how
mm,
strong the reaction from Tiago to her was. And
mm.
we really questioned, was she completely, was the procedure a full success?
Yeah,
It was.
yeah.
But you just imagine like her body was putting something off
Hmm.
in the time that would have been her heat, but she didn't have
Mm.
the parts anymore. And it was so strong that Tiago was still responding to it.
Oh.
That's crazy.
And what's interesting is I had actually forgotten this, but when I first got Lucy, the first several years I had Lucy, I talked to other people about getting her checked because at the time, the open intake shelter that I got her at had some problems with a vet that was not doing full spays and leaving parts behind. And so many dogs were so interested in her that I thought, maybe she's one of them. Like maybe there is something left behind. And for other reasons, she got x-rayed and different things. And they're like, no, nothing's
Nothing.
left in there. Like you're okay. So, but I do wonder if she was still for the next few years
Yeah.
going through that in her body.
Yeah. So her little body chemistry, that's so
Yeah.
interesting to me. And
Yeah.
I think to myself, well, in regards to Trin, I will probably need to be reminded of that, because in
Mm,
15 months, if she goes through a little temperamental period, I need to be reminded, hey, this is her body doing its thing.
mhm.
This is not who she is, right?
Right.
And so you can just like rewind and play this episode for me when
There you
if
go.
that happens. But I also think it's really interesting from a behavior standpoint and how we see dogs in the shelter and
Mhm.
how they interact. I actually shared this whole story with a friend who is extremely involved in a shelter in a rescue. And she had told me that they actually evaluated two females at the shelter that they were going to take in that were intact. And they were like super social with each other, loved each other. Everything was
Mhm.
great. They took them in and they had litters, they spayed them, and then they started to have dog problems.
Oh.
And so I mean, the ship has sailed.
Mhm.
Obviously, in shelter, like you can't, you're in some ways limited by like working through volume, right? That's unfortunate. We
Absolutely.
can't
Yeah.
make decisions we want to make because there's a crisis. But
Mhm.
I think it's interesting. So then one of those dogs ended up going on to live with people, and she is dog social.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's so curious to me. And when I was telling this person this story, instantly this story about these two females, immediately she was like, I got to tell you about this. And
Oh,
so I don't know. It's just something. And it's something where we just have to be like, just tuck that little kernel away and
huh.
do what you will with it. If you meet a female in rescue who's intact and you fall in love with her and then they spay her and she comes home and she's a completely different dog, I would say If possible, give it time.
Mhm.
There could be something going on there. Consult your vet, talk to
Consult
them
your vet.
about possible hormones, literally hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah.
They might look at you like you have three heads, but I mean, I have heard enough stories in the last month at this point that there is plenty of evidence that there is something to this. I've seen this in my home. Trin was spayed on Monday. She's back to her normal self with one
Mhm.
exception. So I didn't even tell Christy about this yet. So last night, she
Mhm.
was extremely tired. She was away in her pen. She's still coming off anesthesia.
Mhm.
This is my fault, by the way.
Okay.
She had been out with the boys all day yesterday, no issues, other than her wanting to play with them and like
Okay.
not being allowed.
Mhm.
So she's all curled up in her little pen sleeping. She literally was passed out. And I was thinking, oh, I want to give her like little time to lay with my husband 'cause she loves to lay on his chest and just canoodle with him.
Yeah, it's really cute.
And so I go and get her and I like open the pen and no response. I should have stopped there, shut the door, and left her alone. I didn't.
Hindsight's 2020.
Instead, I
Like,
like
no,
roused the sleeping
you
dog, which is the
you
worst.
knew what was best because you know she's gonna love time on Cher's chest. Yeah.
Why? So I pick her up because I don't want her to jump on the couch.
Also, she
And
loves being picked up.
she loves it. Like, this is literally PSA, not what to do. I go, I place her with my husband, and he shifts his body to make room for her, which immediately means that he has now opened a spot for Tater to come and lay with him at the same
Oh.
time.
Mhm. Yeah.
And away we go. So Trin
Yeah.
is like, grrr, and freaking out because Tater's now like a foot away. I have like
Oh, yeah.
awakened the beast. And I
Uh-huh.
started this whole thing when I literally should have never done anything. So then I immediately am
Right.
like, shit. So I grab her, I put her back in her pen. She curls up into a little ball and goes back to sleep.
She was like, this whole thing was a bad dream. I'm just going back to sleep.
And she's been with the boys all day today and
Yeah.
totally fine. I literally was like, that should have never happened. Hey,
I mean,
dumbass.
we all make mistakes in the best of intentions, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. So I think that we will be cautious probably for the next few weeks.
Sure.
I will be giving her a little her own time. Right now, as I'm recording, her and Tiago are in the office with me. They're both sleeping on separate beds. I think it's interesting that she is a very cuddly with another dog cuddly.
Mhm.
And she has made zero attempt to cuddle with my dogs since this whole thing has happened.
Oh, Jackson's going to be so
I know
excited.
he would be so happy about that.
I
But for
know.
her, that is odd. And I think
Yeah,
that
it's
that
very
is her like keeping her body away. Like, I don't want to be bothered.
yeah.
And
Because
so
who
I'm
really
taking
wants to
note.
be messed with
I
after
know.
surgery? Like, I'm grumpy too. Like, don't
I,
touch me. Everybody
I
get
totally
away. Let
agree.
me sleep.
So I'm being very outside of last night. I'm
Yes.
being very cautious. I'm making sure there's two beds out or two
Mhm.
blankets out or just little things like that so that she can kind of have her own space. But this whole thing has been such an emotional roller coaster. And I have learned so much. I feel like and again, this is anecdotal, but I do feel like a part of this was the split heat portion because,
Absolutely.
like, the hormones up, the hormones down, the hormones up, the hormones down. That is
Mhm.
terrible. And so I do feel like that's a component. I also think it's interesting when I saw her relaxing before I spayed her, but I saw her behavior relaxing.
Mhm.
I had our friend bring over her intact female who Trin grew up with, our Stafford friend, and it was the first dog that Trin was around since all this started, and I had separated her, and
Mhm.
she was completely normal with Frankie, like
Mhm.
completely normal. Was she
Right.
spicy in the pool around toys? Yeah, like normal spice, nothing
Mhm.
out of ordinary. And
Right.
so I think that's interesting too. There's no threat there because she's a female. Like, did that make her feel more
Mhm.
comfortable? Because it's like, well, you ain't trying to get up in my bits, you know?
Right.
Like, or was it
Yeah.
just that she had relaxed at that point because the hormones had come back down and she was no longer affected? I mean, the day after I did that was the first day after, she started to relax that I tried putting her back with the boys. So, and she was fine
Mhm.
before I spayed her. Who knows? But I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. All decisions need to be made on an individual basis. And like,
Yeah.
if you know at your core who your dog is and something behaviorally turns on its head, immediately search for a medical issue.
Yeah.
Like immediately, because there could be something physical going on with your dog that completely changes how they behave, and that's your tip off.
Hmm. Yeah.
So we just want to thank Trins Hoo Ha for all these amazing lessons and for bringing us this episode.
Can't even.
You are welcome, everyone.
If you've enjoyed this episode, subscribe, rate, and share us wherever you get your podcasts. Also, come on over to Instagram and engage with us at Sometimes There's Side Eye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.